It's about being transported somewhere else, something exotic, you know, being in a concrete jungle like New York. It's like, okay, cool, now we're someplace else, you know, and I think that's what people want, you know, especially, you know, in today's political climate, whether it's Ebola or ISIS or whatnot. It's like you don't want to have to think about that all the time, you know. Sometimes it'd be nice to get away, and as Americans, we can't always get away, so maybe the best and cheapest way to escape is through a drink. So the drink I'm going to make for you guys is the Nui Nui, which is one of my favorite drinks. This is one of those drinks it's simple to make at home. It uses Dawn Spices 4 and Dawn Spices 2, which are two of my favorite. And it has like the juice with those baking spices and rum kind of thrown together. And it's a pretty little presentation, but it's very simple, and it just kind of shows the complexity of tiki cocktails, you know. It's not just rum and juice thrown together. It's got those baking spices that kind of like give it that little hiccup, and it's perfect for, like, you know, the weather we've got now, where it's kind of cold and everybody's kind of leaning towards like apples and cinnamon and stuff like that. And it's like this kind of fits right in. And they're like, whoa, fall tiki drinks? Yeah, of course. You know, everybody thinks it's just bright fruit punch, but it's actually this drink. This is one of Dawn the Beachcombers. It's one of my favorite. It's also one of those. Back to my days at Death and Company, of like a Mr. Potato Head drink. It's primarily rum, but I've also made this drink with gin and with tequila, and like you can sub out different spirits and add a whole new dimension to the cocktail. I was part of the opening group at Pegu Club. Then I left there, went to Death and Company. At one point I was the head bartender there and at Pegu Club. And then I caught the tiki bug. Beach Bum Berry did an article in the New York Times, was interviewed in the New York Times, and he had been to Auto Shrunken Head, and he was like, you can't get a decent zombie in New York City. And I was like, well, fuck you, I'm gonna change that. And then his book, Sippin' Safari, came out, which basically just lays out the recipe for the zombie. So I played around with that. That became one of the more popular drinks at Elitaria, and kind of a more popular drink that I became known for. I brought it to Death and Company after Elitaria closed, and then when I left Death and Company, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do again. And Julie Reiner at Lonnie Kai, I was sitting there kind of depressed, having a drink, and she was like, well, why don't you come here and do what everybody wants you to do, which is make tiki drinks. We've kind of taken on the ethos of tiki in Tiki Mondays, and that we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take our drinks very seriously. Like, just because, you know, we're dressed up like pirates and listening to rock and roll doesn't mean that we don't care about the drinks that we put in front of people. Like, we definitely want, you know, you want a good drink because you're fighting that uphill battle with tiki, where it's like, okay, everybody thinks it's a syrupy sweet cocktail, you know, but it's not. It's actually, it's a very, most tiki drinks are very complex, and not just from the numbers of ingredients in the drinks, but the flavors that are blended together. You know, Dawn's Mix, for example, something that Dawn the Beachcomber created, which is 2 parts white grapefruit juice to 1 part cinnamon syrup. That's an amazing combination. First time I had that, I was like, oh my God, like, how did this guy come up with this? And it's different from the Prohibition style, which, like, when I was at Death and Company, you know, didn't seem like it, but, you know, we were very serious. It's about, you know, you told people about the histories of cocktails, and, you know, you were very serious about your drinks, and, you know, we weren't always friendly to vodka drinkers, and, you know, we wanted people to experiment more and try something different. And it's like, for me, that's an easy transition. It has the same foundation as Prohibition cocktails, in that, like, we care about what we do, and, you know, it's exacting and it's a science, but we're just a little less serious, you know. No arm garters, no vests, no waxed mustaches, you know, slick back hair. It's kind of let your hair down and have a good time. Fresh juices, that's kind of what makes the drink, you know. Fresh pineapple juice, not Dole, you know, fresh orange juice, fresh lemon, lime, grapefruit. And the more you look into it, and you look into, like, Dawn the Beachcomber and, like, his mixes, a lot of his flavor profiles were like baking spices: clove, cinnamon, allspice. you know, and those used in small portions can really like kind of give that extra bump to a cocktail. Like you taste it and you're like, well, that's really, ooh, wait a minute, what was that? You know, it's like, that's cinnamon, you know, and that's kind of a signature of tiki drinks, is that little bump, that little hiccup, the blending of rums, the blending of different syrups, and using different sweeteners, you know. I mean, you look at something like a daiquiri. Basically, a Mai Tai is the same thing as a daiquiri. It's just a daiquiri with benefits, you know. Instead of sugar, you use orgeat, you know, the almond syrup, and you add a little orange curacao. But it's still rum, lime, sugar, you know. And it's such, and the blending of those rums, you know, trying to recreate the past, you know, is really interesting. And that's where bartenders use their creativity and their background in trying to blend different rums together, because we don't have the same things, you know. The Mai Tai had a 27-year-old Ray and Nephew rum in it. We have nothing like that now. So you're using a lot of different things, and like the more you research it, you find new doorways start to open up. And even when I was at Death and Company and doing like Prohibition-style drinks, I would be able to take ingredients that I used in tiki cocktails and start to mix them in Prohibition. And for me, that helps expand the bounds of tiki. Like, what is a tiki drink? Is it just rum and juices and crazy syrups? I'm like, no, it's so much more. It's you know, if I make an old fashioned and I use a little bit of orgeat, or, you know, Dawn Spices 4, which is what the cinnamon syrup was called, you know, now it's a little bit different, you know. I find combinations of gin and cognac, two spirits I would have never thought of mixing together before. Dawn did that in tiki drinks, you know. So it's an ever-expanding genre of cocktails. I just kind of look at it as it's a form of escapism. And tiki is more than just cocktails. It's a lifestyle movement. It's about like wanting to be somewhere else. And like the drinks they're exotic. It's a wild combination of flavors and blends of rum and other spirits. You know, you blend cognac and gin and rum together and wine, and you blend all that stuff together and you taste it, and it's exotic, it's different, it's something you've never had before.